All the way back again to David.
Carl, how much do you think the speed in your car the last 2 weeks has to do with Chad coming from the R&D department where they've been allowed to really get ahead of the curve in terms of car development?
That's probably a better question than I'm able to answer. The technical stuff, you know, I can't. There's probably a lot there. You know, I think that Chad, obviously being on the R&D side, me at the cutting edge of all the little things we're doing, he's able to come over and look at the car a little bit differently, and I think that's good.
Other questions for Carl? Bob and then Mike. I'll get Mike. You'll take Bob.
Bob Parker, Sporting News. I don't know how well you know Allmendinger at all, but do you think he'll be able to come back? I mean, he's going to have to find now a new sponsor and a new team.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the story. I haven't been. I just saw the headlines the other day. Pardon my ignorance, but they just released him. They said so they don't have an agreement anymore at all. Has NASCAR said how long until they would allow AJ to come back and race? Okay, so I think it's still up in the air, but I would have to say from my limited interaction with AJ, he seems like a very, very, you know, mentally tough guy that can just, you know, he can deal with things pretty well. I've sat in a lot of meetings with him. I've been on the racetrack with him a lot, and I think that, you know, as a racer, I think he's a very fast racer. I don't know him personally, but you know, very well. But it seems like he'll. You know, if anybody could come back from it, he seems like he could do it. You know, he's a young guy with a lot of enthusiasm and huge talent. So, you know, I wish him the best. Of course, yeah, I'd be fine racing against him.
Mike Muller, MikeMuller.net. Some crew chiefs here have suggested that going into one with the speeds, they're a little worried about the brakes. Now, we're always worried about brakes at places like this. I think the 31 blew a brake rotor out last weekend, and I don't know what happened to Paul Menard, but you saw that. What's your thinking about turn one and brakes here?
That's what I was going to ask about Paul. I thought I was really surprised that at that 31's brake problem last week, because I didn't know as a group in the garage we were pushing it that hard. I know Drew is, you know, very astute. I know Jeff Burton isn't going to be the guy to abuse the brakes, so that surprised me when they said that happened. Did other guys have brake problems as well? Yeah. I think anytime you're going this fast, the racing is as close as it is, and you know there's so much energy in those race cars at the end of that straightaway. To slow them down takes you know, puts a lot of heat through the brake system. And then the other thing that the drivers, I know I don't think about it enough, but when you're following people, you forget you're not getting that high pressure air in the brake ducts, and you don't cool the brakes as well. And so I wonder if that was part of the problem with Jeff. I don't know if he was following. No, you have to read the way you read your brake temperatures is you can feel that pedal. You know, you can tell when it starts getting hot. Sometimes the fluid will boil a little bit, and it'll get a little mushy. And then sometimes when you shock cool them, they'll get a little rough, and you can feel the pedal bouncing. You know, because there's buildup or cracks or whatever in the rotors. But man, it's really hard to diagnose your brakes just through the pedal. You know, for a long time I've said they ought to have some sort of little shocker or something comes up in the seat. You push the brakes, it shocks you. You know, so you get this negative, you know, reinforcement to push the brake pedal. Haven't figured that one out yet, but I think Bob, that might be one of the projects Bob's working on. He'd probably like to have some sort of shocker hooked to me. What else is going on, guys?
Get him right there.
Hi, Dave Smith from T102 Radio. At Pocono, what's your favorite turn and your least favorite?
That's a really good question. Can you have 3 least favorite turns at Pocono? Every one of them gives me problems. This is the best we've been for a long time, you know, this practice session. But generally, I get down into turn 1, and I go in way too fast. The thing won't turn. Then I step on the throttle, and I'm really loose. And then by the time I build my courage back up for the tunnel turn, I either underdrive it or overdrive it. And I don't know what it looks like on TV, but if you underdrive the tunnel turn, you hit that curb, and it wastes your whole lap. I have a history of doing that, and that's given me a ton of trouble. And then turn 3, it's so flat, and if you're loose, you get in there and you slide that thing all the way up to the fence, and it's really, really tough to be soft enough on the pedals and not shock the tires and all that. So all 3 of them are very different, and the first time I came here, that's the biggest thing I noticed. It was a very mentally taxing racetrack because you're attacking 3 totally different corners over and over, and it's hard to keep them all three straight. I know that sounds silly, but we're only race car drivers. You know, 3 corners is an awful lot, and it's a pretty tough place.
Any other questions for Carl? Bob?
And as far as the tires at Michigan, you know, we heard last April after a tire test, they were all good. You know, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then, so now we hear, we're going to be all good.
Right.
What gives you more confidence that they will be good this time around?
I don't even know what tire we're coming back with. I mean, we went there and we tested, and I think we were just one of the kind of the guinea pigs. Our team, they just had us go run, and then Goodyear kept coming over to me and asking me, hey, is it okay? And they were better. They drove better than the tires before. But so I don't know exactly what they're going to do with that information, but I haven't heard exactly what tire we're going to come back with. I know they don't want to go through the same thing they went through. But at the end of the day, even if we had the same problem, I know they have tires that they can put on the cars. They won't drive really well, but they have tires that can make through the race and make a good race. But it seemed fine.
Over here to David.
I don't know if I was part of that first test. Maybe that's why they didn't ask me too many questions the second test. But
yeah, Carl, David Newton, ESPN.com. When you watch the Olympics, it's all about the athlete, how well they do in the pool or the parallel bars, whatever. When you come here, you can be the best shape you can be in,
Right.
and in the car something wrong. How is that the deal with being an athlete, knowing you're depending on machine instead of just yourself?
that's a good question. Tell you one thing I noticed from the Olympics, they're hard on those guys. The press, have you noticed? The Olympians aren't maybe they're not as salty as us or something, but you guys get away with a lot rougher questions with those guys than you do with us. Anyway, I could go on a rant about that. That's pretty funny though. But I think my thinking on that has changed a little bit. I always thought, okay, when I started racing, I thought, well, this is great. I'm a total control freak, you know. So to me, it was great. So I controlled what happened with the car. I picked the setup. I, built the car and did all these things, and it was an individual sport. And I think a lot of racers are like that. You know, you want to do everything yourself. Then I realized, man, you can have mechanical things happen, and that's how we really look at the sport. I think as a whole, is there's the driver and the car. I realized though those mechanical things are put together and built by other people. So really, it's just more people involved. Now, still there are some mechanical problems, like the problem we had last week, but most of that has a human action involved in it. So there are days. The short answer would be there are days when I really, really wish we could just park the cars, get out and have a foot race or some sort of physical competition, anything, because I feel like my car is holding me up. But there are a lot of days where my car has made me look like a really great race car driver, and I think that still boils down to people. It's all about people. Yeah. Right. Yeah, well, I think in general, most of Jimmy Johnson's success comes from his car. I mean, it has nothing to do with Jimmy. At least that's what I'm thinking. You can, in this sport, you can be as physically and mentally prepared as you can be. You can be the best race car driver that you can be, but if your car isn't good or somebody at the shop isn't paying attention when they put something together, you're right. That can be bad, but that's part of what makes the sport so neat. When you stand there in victory lane and you look at your engine guy and your crew chief and your engineer and all these people, and everyone's worked together as a team and built something better than all of the other teams out there, and then you drove it really well. All those things come together it's a really neat feeling. But it is truly a different type of sport. And we talked about that while we were watching the Olympics. All these different sports in the Olympics. Why can't we have auto racing in the Olympics? Because if you won, you'd have to give a gold medal to every guy down the line, the tire guy, and there's so many parts of a race team that it's not an individual sport, and I appreciate that on a lot of days. I think it's a lot of fun.
Steve?
So if you were in the Olympics, what sport would it be? What sport?
I can tell you a lot of sports that it wouldn't be. I've been watching the Olympics, and there are a lot. I'm like, I could do that part for like 1 second. I could do that, and then I can't. I don't know what I'd do in the Olympics. I don't.
Not a clue?
No.
You flip well. Could you do gymnastics?
No, I'd need a race car out there to jump off of to do any gymnastics. But I have been watching. It's been really neat to watch. When my coach, my trainer, Dean Galich from Carmichael Training Systems, he's over at the Olympics with a couple of athletes that he trains. And to have everything culminate from 4 years of work to one, floor exercise or one time trial on a bike or one 100-meter race in a pool would be, I can't imagine the amount of pressure that would be on. We get to do this 38 times a year or something like that, and it still feels like a lot of pressure to me, but that would be very, very difficult. I have a lot of respect for all those athletes. It's amazing.
Mike?
Following up on that, I know it sounds absurd for NASCAR or stock cars or any kind of racing in the Olympics, but I watched some of that stuff. I mean, I don't know what they do with horses out there, but there's a lot of stuff in the Olympics that's like really weird stuff that you don't see like every day, and at least you see racing every day. Do you think there could be some kind of Formula One type, or you do the you've done the thing in Paris, right?
The closest thing I've done is that Race of Champions, and that's a pretty neat format. I just don't know how you'd do racing. I don't know. That would be interesting, but there's probably a way to do it. I don't know. I don't know if the world's ready for a bunch of race car drivers in the Olympics. I don't know if Bob Costas could explain some of the things we would do and say.
Carl, thanks for coming in, and certainly we wish you all the best this weekend.
Thanks a lot, guys. Hope to see you here Sunday.
Thank you.